Okay, well this is a Lightroom tutorial. I'm really just going through this. It's a bit of a birthday present for Darren. Happy birthday, Darren. I know you said to me the other week about you've bought Lightroom now on my recommendation. You're struggling a little bit with it, so I just wanted to help you out. And yeah, knowing it was your birthday today just made me go, come on, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do a good job of it for Darren. So I hope this is helpful to you. Let's just start off. I'm going to mix this around. You're going to see a bit of me here and then a bit of the screen recording for Lightroom. But so I'm taking my card, I'm plugging it in here, and it will kick in. Lightroom will appear, and let's jump in. Okay, so here we are. Now, I haven't touched this yet. So what's happening is, what you can see on here is that the yours is probably going to be different. Mine is still open from a previous job that I've just done. But this is the important bit along the top here. The first thing you want is library. So let's click the first of these buttons and move into the library. Now what we're doing is clicking on import. And I'm looking up here, devices. My camera is plugged in at the moment doing this recording, so that's why it's looking at that one, but it's EOS Digital. Now note there's a little tick there, eject after importing. So what you're looking at is my full set of holiday snaps. I'm just checking there's nothing that shouldn't be on there. This was us away at Center Parcs recently, so it tells me at the bottom here 513 photos, and as you can see, these file numbers indicate that that's a raw file. I really encourage you to use RAW. That's one of the main reasons why you would be on Lightroom here, because you're now shooting in RAW. But as you can see, by default, it ticks all these. Now these bits along the top again, so let's work along in stages. We're starting over on this left side, and then we're moving to the middle, and then we'll go to the right. So we've ticked and said where we want to import from. It's asked me, do I want all photos? If I didn't want them all, I can untick it and I can go through and manually add them in. But that isn't the case. We want all photos, so in they come. Now, along the top here, copy as DNG. I saw this on a tutorial some time ago, actually. I didn't really get this. You can just copy it and they will come in as CR2 files, as Canon RAW files. But by copying in as DNG, that is a more standard format. So Canon has its own version of RAW, so does Nikon, so do other cameras. This DNG is a universal RAW file. So I'm always ticking on this now, copy as DNG. And once you've set that once, you don't have to do this again. So now I come across the top and it's saying, where do I want to save them? Now this is where we're going to differ. You can just drop them into your pictures and it will save them with a different folder every time. Now remember what you're doing here. These are your raw files and you're going to edit these, tweak them, and then save them out as JPEGs, but your raw files will always stay there. And there'll be a master, there'll be a clean version that's, if you like, had layers put over the top of it with your changes. So what I've done, as you see here, obviously I'm doing this commercially, but I've got a folder on one of my hard drives here called raw files. And in that, I can put my home stuff. I've got different work folders. So for all of my main work files come into this, and I've got a file there for every customer. I'm going to go into home, family, church for this one, and I'm just going to put new folder. I'm going to type in there Center Parcs 2015. Create my folder, tick choose, and all of these down here then, I've got build smart previews because you're working off the previews. I would tick that, don't import duplicates. The rest of it you don't need to worry. And then tick import down here and those files are starting to come in. Now what's important to note is storing files, filling up hard drives. You want to have, so on this computer I've got here, and your iMac or a new iMac will do this certainly, but you're going to get a smaller SSD, a solid state drive for your applications. Now I can be working, so this is my main hard drive on here, and so Lightroom is on there. My Lightroom library is on there, so my all the edits and things that I'm going to do to these photos will be saved on this, but it's only dealing really with the thumbnails, and then the main file is stored elsewhere on my current drive, as you saw. Now that could be an external drive, so it can be pulling your files in from there and just editing, because if you're not careful, you're going to end up filling up your hard drive. And I know, Darren, this has happened for you. You've filled up your hard drive. So it's not a bad thing to use an external one as long as you're backing that up somewhere. So you've maybe got two external drives that are doing the same thing. But yeah, just a point there as this is coming in that, you don't have to be importing these in. And I only discovered this recently myself, to be honest, when I did a bit of research on it, that the main thing to do is to get your Aperture library on your fastest drive, your main drive. Let the thumbnails come into that as well, but then you can actually store, when it's asked you there where do you want to input, that can be on another drive and it won't hinder the performance as long as you've got a good connection and cable, USB 3 or faster. You won't notice any difference. Now these are coming in, and as they're coming in I can start editing them straight away, but you need to just understand the structure here. So we're in this library still, so I'm not going to edit in here. This is really for file handling. So down on the left of my screen it shows me that within my current drive, you can see I've got my raw files, and within home now I come down here and you can see that I'm into Center Parcs 2015. There's 79 pictures in at the minute. They're still coming in. Shows me at the top left that they're importing. But the ones that are in, I can start going through. So I don't really do anything now in this library area. If I were doing some batch work, I could do my ratings in this. If maybe that's what others would do. I could tick on here and I can go through them one at a time and mark them whether they're rejects or not. I tend to go straight over to the Develop tab. What I should point out on the right hand side before we move over, look at all the details on here. If I'm looking at a photo and going, it's blurred, why is it blurred? Well, down the side of here it can just tell me, this one was shot at 125th of a second at 2.8 and ISO 2000. So there's no way that was going to be blurred because of being on too low a shutter speed. ISO 2000 is quite high, so there's going to be, I'm not going to get the sharpness I would at ISO 100. So there's information down there that you can see, but let's jump over to Develop because this is where the main work is going to happen. Now again, look at the screen here. We've got this main central area and then we've got top, bottom, left, right. So if I don't want to see this all the time along the top, I can tick this little arrow and that will disappear unless I hover over. Same down the left. Right over on the side is an arrow. If I tick that, that will all disappear. Same on the right. So it becomes like the bottom of your Apple screen menu if you want it to do hiding. So depending on how big your screen is, I don't feel a need to do that. I'll keep these open. When I'm working on my 13-inch laptop, I will close some of these down so that I've got more space for the photo. But firstly, what I'm doing, I'm going to have a quick pass through here, and I'm just going to erase the ones that I don't want or mark them as rejected, and the ones that I do really like, I'm going to put a 5-star on. Now you can do this how you like. If you think there's a case of keeping everything rather than deleting them, maybe you mark everything as a 4, and then as you go through your 4s, you go, actually they're the real good ones, I'm going to push them up to a 5. Come up with your own system, but the ratings, it's very easy to skim across these, and if I hit a number, it will just tell me it's changed it to a rating of 4. If I hit X, it marks it as rejected, and that's what I'm doing on that first one because it's blurred. Okay, so all my photos are in now, 513. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to show you what I would do in some basic editing. So here I go then. So I'm using this bar along the bottom with all my thumbnails on, and I'm just going to go through first and reject the ones that I don't want. Now, one thing you have to do over here is where it says filter, tick in that middle one, and then what will happen is as I click on reject on here, they will actually disappear from this line. They haven't been deleted, they're simply marked as rejected. So I've taken them off of my view. Now what I do commercially is I would reject them, and then a month or two later I would go through and I would select just the rejected ones and I'll delete them. It just gives me opportunity before deleting anything too quick. I've done it in the past and someone's come back and said, oh, you haven't got that photo, have you? Or a different angle of that one. So that's what you can do. But by rejecting them, just realise that rejecting them isn't going to clear up any more space on your hard drive. They haven't gone anywhere. They've just been marked to be unviewed. So I'm going through doing that. So again, it's all over on my keys now. I start off on my first one. Over I go. I'm liking that one, by the way. That's going to be good to play with. Overexposed, hit X and it disappears. Now where I've got multiples of the same thing, it's just really a case of me deciding which one I think I'm going to use. And I wouldn't let my decision be based on exposure. Let me just show you on here. That one's overexposed, but look how easily, because I'm working in RAW, I can slide that back and it looks just as good as it would have done. So don't make your decision of which one you delete or not based necessarily on exposure. More interesting to see if you can, and you only have to click on it here and it will zoom in and out, you know, which one looks the best. Okay, so I'm doing that and I'm going through it. So actually, that's the better one. I only really want one of each type of photo. Now I'm looking as I would with people really for kind of eye contact and something a bit different maybe as a photo. I'm going to get through a lot of these. That one's out of focus. I've managed to shoot down here. I don't have to get it dead right here. All I'm doing is really just knocking out duplicates that I don't think I want. That's out of focus. That's got potential. I was just walking along with the camera kind of pointing it up and waving it around and seeing, so there's going to be a lot of misses in here, and if I just get an odd one in focus, I'll be happy. So that's why there's a lot of unfocused ones, trying a bit of a different style and playing around. Here's one that's got potential to play with. So again, I'm looking between the two. Is there any difference in eyes? Doesn't look like. So let's knock you out. Knock you out. And I'll stop there, I think. We won't go into, there's a whole load of badminton shots and things there. So now what do I do? So you can see that I've thinned that right out. So let me pick on something here. This is one, Centre Parks love this one actually and want this, so I do need to edit this one anyway. Now I've got some presets that I have downloaded that are free. So they're down this left hand side here. And if you go to some of these sites, I will put a link to show you flp.co, this Instagram collection where I got these from. But as you can see, this little preview at the top here changes as I go over these different effects. And these are the kind of things you see on these nice pro photos where you look at them and someone's taking some wedding shots and you think, oh, I'd love to be able to take photos like that. Well, it's a lot of the time done with these effects. Now let me, for instance, pick off this one of the family here. Now I can just, I've got one that I like here, this Shoreditch, and straight away I can apply that and it instantly gives this very modern effect of, well, a vintage if you like, but it's a very creative, it's what people are doing at the minute. And I like that, and what I can do then, so that's on the left hand side of the screen, or I can just change around between them. There's another one there. I've got a lot of different coloured option ones in here. They've got a lot of black and white ones. But I am really enjoying these Shoreditch ones. So I'm going to go back to this Shoreditch light. Now what that has done is to make quite a strong contrast on that. So I'm going to pull back. So over here, this is where we do all our work now on the left hand side. So my exposure has been pushed up by this preset over here. All that preset is someone has gone through and tweaked this and then saved it out as an automatic preset. So you'll see that this will jump around as it's been done. So I'm going to pull that back a bit. That exposure didn't need to be put up. So I'm going to say ended up on that plus 30. Now the contrast is way up, and this is all part of making the effect. So we will leave that up there. Now what I like is this tilt and shift where you get this blur, and a very deliberate one as well. So the tools and that I've got on here are affecting the whole photo. If I want to do a vignette, you can see that down here. That just puts this extreme there. You can see what it does, and then back it off. But that can be quite nice. When I click up here, I can start cropping this photo. Now if you go to do this and you find that it's staying within the restraints, over here on the right is a padlock, and if I unlock it, then I can go whichever way I want, and I'm now in control of that size. All it's done when the padlock is on is it said I'm going to keep it in that same aspect ratio, but I'm not looking to crop it. If I wanted to rotate it, then when I come off of here, I can do this. So if you just wanted to straighten up an image, you can do that, and then I click in it and I can move it around. Click reset over here, takes it back to where it was. When I untick that, I'm back. What can I do? This is my spot removal tool. So down here, for instance, I'm going to pick this big leaf at the front here. I just wipe over it with the brush, and then it will tell me where it thinks it's going to get an area from. And when I turn that off, you'll see that's done a pretty impressive job of getting rid of that. When I reset it, you see it come back. Yeah, so it's as easy as that. Now, your options are brush size. The feather is how hard it is on the edge, or whether it's got quite a soft feather to it. Sometimes I will have that feather up high. Hang on, I'm telling you the wrong way around. Yeah, when that number is down low, it's the other way around to in Photoshop. When that is down low, it becomes a very hard edge. And when the feather is set higher, it becomes very soft. So soft is better for just blurring things in. If I'm not happy with the area that it's selected, I can move that around, and it will take the content from the new area into there. Again, uncheck that, and it's gone. So that's really good. And if you want to get rid of odd things, this next one is what I'm going to show you now. So as you can see, when I come onto here, I've got a new menu appeared, and I can set a gradient on here. So if I choose from here down, at the minute, the setting that is happening is the sharpening has gone down, so it's blurring it in effect. If I push it that way, I'm telling it that I want everything above that line to be sharp, and then this in effect is my feather. So how quickly it goes from that to this is across this area. Now if I take the sharpness back to the middle, and for instance let's change the color. Okay, you can see more obviously now what is happening, that the top area above that third line is totally going that way, and then there's this gradient between these. Now if I grab the bottom one, then what I'm doing is I'm saying that this gradient area here, this feathering, if you like, of going from one to the other is now much shorter. If I do this, then it will be much softer, a change between them. So this is something you could use if you'd got a sky and maybe I wanted to, let's again push them back. Maybe I wanted to bring the exposure down of the part above because I wanted my sky to come drop that down. It's a bit like an ND grad filter putting in. If I got a nice sunset, I could do this and I could take the highlights down from above. I could change the color to make it really blue in the clouds above. So this is a super tool, but I'm using it here purely to blur. So I'm coming right down onto the top of the heads and I'm taking this sharpness right down because I want that blurred above. And I want the same down here, but I want to come up this time and it's clever enough to know that the area I'm dragging from is where I want the blur to be. Now it'll let me do multiple on here. And wherever I drag it from, it will blur off behind it. If I don't want it, I tick it and press delete and it goes. Okay, so I can make this quite extreme by going one layer over the top of another. And when I untick that, I've now got this sharp area in the middle and a blur top and bottom. If I want to do the alternative of that is if I want to emphasize that even more, I can use this adjustment brush on the right and I can make my sharpness right up. And now I can actually paint on, in effect, sharpness here. So there's different tools for doing the same thing. You can see the power of this, and I hope this makes some sense. I can either do with this gradient tool a whole area, a bit like you do with a paintbrush, like you do with the gradient tool in Photoshop, that you're filling an area with color and you want it to smoothly turn into the other one. I'm just doing it here with the whole sharpness. I think I've done a bit too much there, actually. That looks a little bit too fake. Let's drag that down a bit. If you touch these and find they're not dragging or moving, just kind of click it twice and it'll come back. So now I've just got one top and one bottom. And again, if I come slightly to the side, I can actually turn around this angle. Amazingly flexible. Okay, I tick up there to take that setting off. What else can I do with that photo? I can again put this vignette in a bit if I want. Again, the feather tool on here, you'll understand what this is now that I'm saying I want this to be more gradual. Maybe I put some grain in there. But yeah, it's given me a chance to play with the original photo. And one thing I can do is to click on the image down here, right click it and say create virtual copy. And if I go back to the original one and reset it, then that's the original photo, and that's what I've just done with it. Now let's go back to our squirrel. This is one that I do need to work on anyway. So, okay, now one thing I can do on here is tick this aspect. And if I want to change this, so I'm seeing it as a portrait, it'll change from landscape there to portrait there. And that's the shot I'm after. In fact, I might change this and go for a slightly wider. I'm just trying to center up his eyes, really, just telling you what's going through my head. I might actually just twist that a bit so I've got him there. So his eyes, can you see that line going through? I've got his eyes very central there. When I click back up here, I've now got this back. And I think that just improves the photo slightly. Or does it? Back a little way. There we go. Right, so what am I going to do with him? It's already quite nice and sharp, but what I can do then is the same thing. I'm going to use this little tool over here. It's pushed up for the sharpness. and I'm going to increase the sharpness on his eyes. Okay, I'm going to zoom this back out actually. Let's have a look at it back here. So I've got my brush on. I'm just going to sharpen this whole head area. Including them whiskers. Okay, and at the ears. Now if I find that brush is a bit small for me, I can just roll the mouse there, or you can go up here. You can adjust the brush size there, but if you've got a scroll wheel, you can just roll it like this. Look, scroll wheel. So yeah, so I've sharpened up the head there. I could take that off. I'm tempted to have put a bit of a style like that on. What do you think? Does that look better, or should I have left it as it was? Control Z, wonderful tool. Let's go back. So that's it as it was. And I've lost my sharpness. There we go. Let's put that back in. It's not right the way up on the sharpness. I've just given it some. What I might do as well is some clarity. That would just, it's like a bit of contrast that it will put in the head there. Yeah. Take that off. What else might I want? I'm just sort of playing really with this. I could put a vignette on there. Does that help draw the eyes in? Maybe. Is the exposure okay? Not too bright, not too dark. You can see how useful a raw file is. I can do all this stuff and it isn't damaging the quality of that original file. That's actually a bit nicer when I take that back. I think that was a little bit warm. I'd got it set as cloudy, but actually with this grey squirrel, I think that suits it. We're trying to do the whole cold thing as well. They like the little phrase that I put out over this, baby, it's cold outside. So we don't want it looking warm. But yeah, I think that, so that again, the whole point, this little folded hands, maybe I should have just tried to get a bit more focus on these. You can see them. See him kind of doing his wrapped up cold outside. This is the thinking anyway. Do I need, it might be worth, let me just do again. So I'm going to take my sharpness the other way to a blur. Let me just see what happens if I do this. So if I take a blur there and then bring it up. So everything below is blurred. Does it help? Yeah, it's not bad actually. It draws the eye in. No, leave it as is. Take that off. Okay, so that's one there. Okay, so for example, I've now scored this. This is a 5-star photo. So when you look along the bottom, you can see the ones that have got the little 5 on. I think that's definitely going to be the kind of winner out of this set. The duck wasn't bad either actually. Would just need a bit of, get this bit of bread off of its mouth. Okay, go on then. I heard you say how you're going to do that. So I'm going to use this same tool here, but I've got to take that right down. You can see actually this feather is this rim around the outside of here. If I were adjusting the feather, you would see that that edge changes. So I want this out. I don't really want a feather in this one because I want to do this and then grab some yellow nearby. So it doesn't always pick the right spot, and because I'm on quite a limited area here, I'm not too sure how well this will work. Not great actually, is it? Let's do another one. So if you're trying to do something else over the same spot, I can put it there. It's chosen something way off in the distance. Let's bring it in. I'm just using a bit of this. Now, to be honest, if I were doing this properly, I would do this in Photoshop, but I'm just wanting you to see what can be done. So if I do one there and then move that back over here, it's not good actually, is it? Now I can just click edit in, and because we've got this suite here of Lightroom, Photoshop, I'll click on here, it will take it into Photoshop, and what I would be doing is copying this area here, copy paste, and then move the new bit across and kind of delete the bit I don't want, but I'm getting that bit of colour and moving it over. So sorry, I need to cop out of that one. I'm going to rotate this around a bit. I do want this bird's head straight. Just get him in here, a little bit more even. Enter, or clicking up there takes me back. Colour looks a bit flat in this, I think. So I'm going to try that vibrance. Look at the difference in that. Push that clarity up as well. Now this may not really be coming through too well by the time this has been saved out, but that's working a treat. I am going to sharpen the whole thing and possibly a bit of vignette, not a huge amount. And then I'm going to do some specific sharpening right in again, in and around. And I'm going to just take that back. I want that feather up a bit wider now. And I'm just going to do some extra sharpening around the head here, just to give that some punch around that eye. Okay, here's another 5. Now let's take these 2. Well, I'm going to tick there. It shows me down here I've got, it says 456 of 514. That's because I've rejected the rest of them. I've got 456 left, but 2 of them are selected. So now when I right click and go export, you've got several options in here. These are ones that I've made up, but there will be some already in. Click export right at the top. Now, where do you want to export to? Specific folder wants to be ticked, and then you can click choose over here. Now for the sake of this, I'm just, well no, let me show you. I was going to say I'm just going to stick it on my desktop, but I'll go into current and current work, and I've got a home one there, and if I make a new folder and call it again Center Parks 2015, and then I'm going to click choose. So now this isn't where my raws are kept. They're in a folder called raws with that folder name inside it. Now I'm out on my current drive, and this is really where my end photos will be. So I've told it where I want it to be. If I want to put a subfolder, then maybe I can categorize these into, so within Center Parks I might have wildlife or I might have family, but typically these just want unticking. File naming, leave it as it is. File settings, now I'm going to suggest JPEG on here. Now these are mostly going to be used for web use. Now remember, you've got your raws, you can come back to these at any time. If someone says, wow, could you print me that off for a canvas, then I would be saying let's go to a TIFF, or actually no, you could still stay on a JPEG, but I wouldn't resize it, and I would set your resolution to 300. Oops. And then when you click export down here, that's going to send a nice big file out at full size. But typically what you're going to be doing is putting things up on the web. So I'm going to go to 72, which is the screen resolution. And we're going to go resize to fit. So just for consistency, I've said that rather than a width and a height, the long edge, so whether it's a landscape, it's going to be the width, or height, it's going to be for a portrait. The long edge is going to be 2000 pixels. Now think of a screen, you're getting near 2000 on a lot of screens now. So that's pretty much full screen size at a good clarity. So that's not a bad one to go for. So JPEG, long edge to 2000 pixels, resolution 72. You don't need anything else on there. I click export, and as it tells me at the top of here, it's exporting 2 files. So when I come over here, let's go a different way in, current work, home, center parks, there are my 2 JPEGs, 182K and 250K. So small sizes really. You could easily upload those in seconds on your internet, but that would be a perfect size for putting up on Facebook or somewhere else that someone can have a look at. So that's kind of Lightroom. I hope that helps. I don't know if that's a bit garbled really. There are other settings in here. There are things you can do. One thing I should show you maybe is I can copy and paste things from. I've got a batch here of all the same. If I think that my white balance is wrong, you know, maybe I say I'm a bit too warm on this, I can edit the first one, and I'll up the slider up here, I will pull that color down and get it to what I like. And then I can go Command C to copy, but it doesn't just do a copy because there's so many options. Now you can either click check all and it will copy everything that I've done on that photo and move it, or what you might like to do is take off the crop, or you might like to take everything off and just put the white balance back in. I'm going to tick check all but leave crop and then copy, and then when I come over here to my next one I can go Command V and it will take that setting over. Okay, one thing that I should just point out is the way that you can change the color. If let's go back. So if on this one, if I thought that all of these squirrels looked a bit warm, the white balance is a bit warm, I can take that down on one photo, and then if I select the others, as long as the first one is the one, you can see how one has got a stronger color around it. As long as that's the one that's selected, I can say sync, and it'll ask me what do you want to sync, and I click there, and now the others have all taken on that same color. So if you do something and you realize that your white balance is way off, don't worry about it. You can very easily change it there. Okay. So we've gone through it. There are some presets. Again, you know, there's different presets you could have a play with over here. Use them as a starting point. These are all free ones. If you look on Final Cut Pro presets, you can pay for them as well. I quite like just having a fiddle. It can just, yeah, make a regular photo look quite artistic and professional. So, yeah, there you go. And you just close this down. When you come back to it, it will come back to the same place. Printing is a whole nother thing really, but you can come over here. You've got settings on this as to how you want it to look, depending on what paper you're using. But library and develop will get you going. Grab them, batch them out. I'm just seeing, is there anything else in here worth just trying to play with? Give you another shot. This was one, I think we had a go at a few photos with the kids. I like in my hat there. So I'd set these up, I'd focused on the boys, and then I've got a trigger in my hand. So yeah, what about this one? Let's again instantly go over by just touching on one of these presets. It'll add an effect like this. Let's stay over here again. Let's pull that exposure back a bit. Highlights my face. Owen's face looks a bit bright. I'm going to pull this highlights down. I'm going to do the same thing with my blur. So I'm going to do my sharpness down. I've selected this gradient bit. Let's see what happens if I just bring that up a bit. Same from above. Leave that be. Come over here, sharpness up. Let's just go over our faces, particularly. Give a bit more punch to the shot. Oh, I don't know. I'm not convinced that's particularly helped us in that one. Maybe that one. And if you think any of these things are a bit too much, you can just come over here and adjust them. This is mostly done on this tone curve here. See how that changes as I tweak it. But yeah, bit more vignette. I quite like sticking a bit of grain on these pictures as well, not too much. That's not bad. Maybe, you know, I don't know quite why I'd put it so off center. Maybe that's a bit better. But yeah, that's a photo that could be a keeper. Again, what do we think to this light in the background? Quite simply, and I want my feather back up. Not that much. Click on the light. It's selected an area that's got a branch in, so that's not good. But that ain't bad going, is it? Trying to come a bit wider on some of these photos as well. Same thing. Just bring a bit of blur in. Bit more of a blur maybe coming from below. And I'm doing exactly the same thing on all of these. Can you see what I'm doing? So I'm blurring top and bottom, and then I'm just adding sharpness to us in the middle. In fact, you can do a strip right through there. And you'll see when you touch on that the area that you've got. Okay, so that's me doing some edits. Hope that's helpful to you and interesting, especially to Darren, because this is all for you, mate. So there we go, bit of a Lightroom tutorial. Definitely recommend you shoot in RAW. It's so much better than being in JPEGs. I've done some video work the other day and struggled getting the colors through, and it just reminded me what it's like working with JPEGs when you're trying to edit. RAW's all the way. Lightroom is a fantastic tool. This is quite a simple tutorial. You can find loads of tutorials in line. In fact, I shall go and have a look, and I might just recommend a few. But yep, there we go. That's it for me. Sorry if I was waffling too much. Bit of a on the fly, making it up as I go along. But hopefully it's good. Thank you.